G'day and welcome. Welcome. It is Thursday afternoon, and I'm here to preview. Tomorrow night's round 10 game. It comes around really quickly, doesn't it? Particularly, it comes around quickly when you play Sunday late afternoon, and you get a Friday night game. It's a 5-day break. It is round 10. It is a 7:50 start at Marvel Stadium. Incredible to think that we're playing Friday night football. And this is going to be we think this will be an absolute belter. Fourth v fifth. We're fourth, the Swannies are fifth, and potentially, can we start thinking about these sort of things? Potentially an 8-point game for us. Anyway, that 8-point cement top 4 position after 10 rounds. Dependent, obviously, we get the job done. Also, what the hell happens between St Kilda and Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval? You would think the form that St Kilda are in, they'll get the job done there. Although, okay, funnier things have happened. Whew. This makes me bloody nervous. I have got a lot of nerves about this game. And a bit of anxiety and a lot of butterflies. Michael Voss, first-year coach of our football club, doing a wonderful job. Coached before, but he's come across. We can see the changes up against John Horse Longmire, who, in contrast, 12th year as senior coach of the Sydney Swans, premiership coach, been to a couple of grand finals. That, when you think of Sydney, right, this is everything that you want your football club to be. And forget about this sort of little bit boring and stuff. And I don't necessarily want our club to be boring, because really we follow our club on field. Okay, when you're winning games of football, it's exciting. Okay, but off field, they just go about it in such a professional way, and they're reliable. And even when they go through that and everything they do, everything with Horse taking over from Paul Roos all those years back, everything's just been embedded. Those philosophies have been ingrained in this football club. And we're seeing it firsthand with someone like Georgie Hewitt, who's just such a solid citizen, comes across, and we're lucky to have him. Plays against his old side tomorrow night. And I could only imagine Sydney Swan supporters over all these years, and I've been jealous. I'm jealous of them, that they're such a good team to support. And I actually like, as an opposition supporter, when they play against a Victorian team. In the past, that you could really get behind them, particularly a Victorian team that you didn't like, because usually that they bring unbelievable effort and attitude, and that's what they do. That's what Sydney does. So I'm nervous about this game tonight, based on that we know they're going to be professional. But we look at the record, and this is what makes me a little bit nervous as well. We're 7-2, they're 6-3. They played finals last year, the Sydney Swans, so they're building. Mentioned that rebuild they went through a couple of years back. It was a tiny little rebuild. They brought in a lot of youngsters, a lot of academy players. They're a bit lucky in that respect. But they bounced that back really quickly and played finals last year, and they were stung by the Giants by 1 point in elimination final. Have they necessarily come out this year firing on all cylinders? I don't think they have. You look at their record so far at 6-3, and you think, well, they're fifth on the ladder. They're travelling pretty well, but is their record? I don't know. You think round 1 against the Giants, they got the job done in Sydney, beat Geelong, Buddy's thousandth game. A lot of emotion in that game, so they went back to back to start the year. Then they lost against the Western Bulldogs in their only trip, I think, to Melbourne, really, at Marvel Stadium by 9 points. We beat the Doggies the week before. They weren't great that night. And then they had 3 wins in a row. Like they beat North Melbourne unconvincingly at the SCG, where they haven't been great this year by 11 points. Went across to Optus Stadium, Perth, and smashed the Eagles, which a lot of teams are. And I thought probably their most impressive win for the year was that one against Hawthorn, who were in pretty good form at the time, by 41 points, and that was in Tasmania. But they went back-to-back losses on their home ground, and I reckon this may have stung them. I reckon this could have stung them into action, and this is what I'm probably a little bit worried about. They had that the loss against Brisbane by 24, and then the Gold Coast in somewhat of a boil over, although Gold Coast do play well against them. It was a shock loss. 14 points, and then they hit back. Last week by 48 against probably the most disappointing team in the competition so far this year in Essendon. So how much do you take out of that win, 48 points? But why am I? But they might say the same thing about us. So I'm looking at that record of theirs, and it doesn't scare me at all. I don't look at that and go, "Well, look at they've beaten." They probably say the same about us. But the difference with us is we didn't come off finals last year. I mean, we were poor last year, so we've actually gone from there to there, where they're probably just, I don't know whether they're plateaued or they're just, I don't know. So you would say we may have a little bit more confidence at the moment and maybe a little bit more belief. But you're talking about the Sydney Swans here when you're talking about things such as belief. So the reason why I'm so nervous, okay? So for me now, top 4 and how important this game is, and the fact that it is against Sydney, who we know are professional. We know they're going to come and give great effort under Horse. I'm also thinking, what was our expectations to start the year? I reckon internally, externally, no matter who you are, I think the expectations were to play finals football. And so far, they're being met. And unless we fall in a massive hole, okay, I think it would have to be a massive hole from here. We're going to be playing finals in some form or another come September, which is bloody exciting. Okay, but top 4. If we were able to stay top 4, and I'm sure players would be thinking about this, and I'm sure you would be thinking about it as well in some form or another, and there's this tendency to play it down. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. That's fine. It's not that I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just thinking, why not? Why not fucking us this year? Why not? This is a year. This is a year that we should be making the most of our opportunities. Why? And I used this hashtag a few years back. Own the now. Own it. Own the potential and the possibility to do some serious damage this year. And why not? And that's why this game tomorrow night makes me so angry. I'm not angry, so nervous, because I've got belief we can win this game. But at the same time, the ramifications is it's not even a huge ramifications. It's not the end of the world. Okay, but it does make you a tad vulnerable for that top 4. Wow. So I'll be fucking barracking my absolute ring off tomorrow night. Absolute ring off. And in fact, I'll be screaming and shouting as loud as I have for a very, very long time. Because I don't know, the expectations now have changed a little bit for me. I don't know. Yep, I don't know how you feel. Let us know how you're feeling. At the selection table, we lose Williams. Disappointing for him because I thought he'd really hit some good form, some good defensive form. It mightn't feel like that it's such a problem at the moment, and it definitely wasn't against the Giants, but yeah, it may be, okay, because of that, getting that defensive group together and playing together for a significant period of time. 10 to 12 weeks. That's a big blow for us and him. Good to hear that both Liam Stocker and Lewis Young are over their injuries. Well, Young, I think, what, do you have COVID or something, or out with the protocols, and Stocker with that shoulder injury. He was suspended. So it's going to be interesting at 5 o'clock to see the makeup of the team, whether Jack Carroll is rested. He's had his 3 games. He was a little bit quieter last week, 5-day break. So what do we do with him? Does that mean Kemp stays? Does Kemp go forward to give us a little bit more down there, or do we go with the same sort of smaller type forward line? And what do we do with Matty Cottrell as well? And is there a possibility that Paddy Dow gets a chance to play? We're just going to have to wait and see. Sydney, really, they're pretty much at full strength. Don't appear to be missing a lot. They lose Rowbottom through suspension. He's been solid. He's been solid without being spectacular. He's not a spectacular player, but he's just part of that midfield group. But they can bring Ryan Clark in, who himself is not as good as Rowbottom, but he can play a role through that midfield, and he has shown in the past that he can lock down. He can lock down. He started as a sub last week for them, unused sub, so he may just come in as a replacement. I'm not quite sure if they've got any soreness or any injuries from last week's game against the Bombers. I think interesting is Sam Reid. He's given us headaches in the past. He's been playing in the VFL the last couple of weeks, and I think they're pretty happy to get big Tom Hickey back, who missed 5 weeks with a knee injury. And that combination of Hickey and Laddams really that worries me. It worries me forward of centre as much as it does in the ruck. And it's a big night once again for TDK. A big night. And he's now played 3 games in a row, pretty much full-time ruck. And will it take its toll? Will it take its toll, and will that toll be tomorrow night? That for me is fascinating to see how that plays out. Does Lewis Young come in as a pinch hit in the ruck, and Kemp stays? They've got some height, the Sydney Swans, they really do, particularly in their back half as well. How do they structure up down there? I think the thing that worries me a little bit with Sydney as well is that Tom Papley, this is his 4th game back now. He had a good one last week against Essendon, who were poor. He had 21 and 2. And I think he's just about to explode after missing the start of the season. That's the feeling I get from someone like Tom Papley. And I look at that forward line of theirs, and it's just about perfect. It's just about perfect. Obviously, Franklin's no longer the player he was, but he will cause headaches. Logan McDonald's young. He's young. They would probably prefer him to be a little bit more experienced, but he's young and exciting as that centre-half forward or full forward, wherever they want to play him. And I mentioned Laddams as well when he drifts forward as well. That's a really, really good mix. And I think they've got probably the best sort of hybrid forwards in the competition with Isaac Heaney. Haywood's dangerous when he's down there as well. Great over his head. Tom Bell is powerful, tackles really hard. It's not Tom Bell, James Bell, tackles really hard. And I mentioned Papley before. So they've got a lot of weapons in their front half, the Sydney Swans. So if they get, I noticed they had 60-odd inside 50s last week. If they're getting 60-odd inside 50s, they're going to take some stopping. So we talk about the midfield. We talk about transition. Our defensive work has improved. Not allowing the opposition to have big inside 50 tallies and give their forwards opportunities. That's going to become very important tonight. When you look at that forward mix, particularly the likes of Heaney and Haywood, who look like to be really, really, really dangerous difficult matchups for us. That midfield, theirs is probably, I wouldn't call it no name, but it's got a little bit of experience in there, but good experience. Tab Warner, Errol Gilden, are 2 young players that I'm impressed with, really impressed with, particularly Warner, his speed, and Gilden. Watch him on that left foot. If we thought Fisher had a nice sort of sidestepping left foot, then watch Errol Goulden tomorrow night. I know I'm pumping the Sydney Swans up here, but they do have a nice mix through the midfield, led by Luke Parker and Mills. Mills gone in there as the captain of the club, and they're just hard. They're hard. And I know we got under the skin of Mills, it would have been 4 or 5 years ago now. Tom Williamson, I think, got into him. And ever since that day, it's sort of like sparked him. I know he had an Achilles injury, but he's become one of the best midfielders in the competition, I reckon. He's got everything, inside and outside play. He's pretty skillful and very reliable. And Florent goes through there, as well. So they've got some skill, they've got some speed, and they've got some toughness, allowing them to play Josh Kennedy either on a wing or half-back flank, or even sometimes as a sub. And we know how good our midfield is. It's going to be on in the centre. It's going to be on. It is, physical. George Hewitt up against his old club. I can't wait for that. I can't wait to see George Hewitt go to one of their midfielders. I can't wait to see who they play on Patrick Cripps. I can't wait to see what they do with Sam Walsh, with Adam Chera, with Matthew Kennedy. We've got the depth now. We've got the depth. What Sydney do though, which we don't necessarily do, is they roll a lot of their midfielders through the wings, and their wingers are good. They're really good. So does Justin McInerney go to Lockie O'Brien's wing, which I reckon would be great. A great baptism of fire for Lockie O'Brien, because I really rate Justin McInerney. He's one hell of a footballer. I think he's just signed a long-term deal with the Sydney Swans. Down back, we know our strengths last week was our ability to pressure inside our forward half with those smalls, Owies and Durden, and chuck in, the work that Jack Silvani did as well. And the youngster Motlop, he'll play again. He'll get a second game. And Sydney Swans back line is just unheralded. The two McCartan brothers, it's a little bit big. Rampy that means Rampy might go to Jack Silvani. They were playing Rampy as a key a few years back until Tom McCartan came on as a key back, and his brother now Paddy in. Will Paddy play on Charlie, or will it be Tom? How do they mix that up? I'm really not quite sure. Lloyd wins a lot of it, and Blakey for me, the lizard is the one. He's the one who can get going for the Sydney Swans, and I'd like us to do a bit of work into him. He's tough, he's fast, and he can kick. He's had a really, really good year. I'm going to put my balls on the line here and say we're going to win this game of football. I haven't got I had egg on my face last week because I didn't believe in our club, and I'm not going to come out here today and say that Sydney are going to win this game. I believe in our group. I'm believing in this group right here, right now. This is going to be a belter of a game. I'm going to be disappointed if we don't get the chocolates. I'll be really, really disappointed. But I think we can win it. I think we can win this game of football and secure our spot in the top four. And it becomes a matter of why not us this year? Why not us?